I just wanted to laugh and thank the president for his dumb move of backing a candidate against John Corryn in the Senate race, and Senate seniority. I did a bit of research that, was going on, and I found out, John Cornyn was elected originally in 2022, and that his position in the Senate, was the 11th most senior senator and everything, and that he was from Texas, and this was the Texas senator that got dropped off and knocked off by a Texas candidate, which then made me interested in what the junior senator from Oregon's position was in Senate seniority, only to effectively realize that he was below and that he, you know, was the 23rd most, senior senator, which now after this, he's going to be the 22nd. And, I don't know who else has been knocked off at this point, but, there's at least a big jump in Merkley's power, and that comes at the expense of Texas. Like basically Senate committee assignments go by, seniority and everything, and that means that Merkley has just gone up and Oregon has gained power at the expense of Texas. And Oregon was a Kamala state. It's blue as fuck, and I know that there are some people that will try to argue and contradict that. Fuck them preemptively. They're dead wrong. I mean, when you've got a 60-40 split, it's going to remain a blue state no matter what, and everything. And yes, there may be a large minority of Oregonians are Republicans, but there just aren't enough of them for them to gain political enfranchisement and for them to get actually have power at all, which is why I find myself laughing at all these ballot initiatives to like recall Governor Kotek and Kate Brown and all that other stuff because it's a point like I would literally want to cut ads, demonizing the Oregonians that did this and put these efforts forward because they're wasting taxpayer money. And I mean, I know that people might find that anti-democratic or whatever and, condemn me for saying it, but I mean, look at this from the rational point of view. There's no like even if they did manage to get their recall through for Kate Brown back in the day, if that had succeeded, it would have just been a pointless exercise in futility. We would have voted for her all over again and just send her straight back to Salem, and it wouldn't have made any fucking difference. They would try, and then she'd just win the fucking recall, and it would have been fucking pointless. Because Oregon didn't change its mind. It wasn't going to, and it doesn't fucking trust the Republicans at all, and everything. And the Oregon Democratic Party, is pretty locked into the party, but it doesn't fucking trust the GOP. You may say things are getting bad in Oregon, but we don't care. We don't trust the GOP to fix anything. So we're gonna keep voting blue no matter how bad it gets in this state. We don't give a fucking crap. You know, fucking half the state could be on fire, and everything, and we'd still vote blue. It doesn't make any fucking difference. And so Oregon is a blue state, and I know there are people here that disagree vehemently. I don't give a shit. Go right the fuck ahead. You're maybe 40% of the population, and the only counties that matter or count in statewide elections are like the three biggest in the state: Washington, Multnomah, Clackamas County are the only ones that count for statewide elections. Everybody else is fucking politically irrelevant and doesn't matter at all in the whole rest of the state. For statewide elections, those are the only three counties that count for dick and everything, and nobody else, nobody that's going against the tide of opinion in those three counties has a snowball's chance and of surviving for 30 years, and a snowball no greater than 6 inches has a greater chance of them gaining political relevancy. A snowball that's no greater than 6 inches in diameter has of surviving a 30-year stint in a fiery, hot hell than they do of gaining any kind of representation at a statewide electoral office. So, Jeff Merkley will easily sail to re-election. So will Senator Wyden and everything. Who's way up there now at this point. As the fourth most senior senator and everything, and the ranking member of the finance committee. And so, this is at this point, he'll probably be there longer than Patty Murray and gain the appropriations, the vice chairmanship at the very least, and everything. And, in years that we control the Senate, he'll be the chair, and everything. And so, what Donald Trump just did, in knocking Corryn off, is just made Oregon more powerful at the expense of, you know, uh, Texas, which, thanks, stupid. I mean this in the most spiteful, hateful, sadistic, and unkind way, and everything, in the most ironic way. I love it. I love what I'm seeing, No matter what, no matter who wins this Texas primary or, sorry, this Texas general election for John Cornyn's seat now that he's gone and everything, no matter what happens there, Texas has lost power and Oregon has gained power. So I'm happy with this result. And Oregon literally hates Donald Trump. The majority of the voters here literally hate him. Now, you may not, and you may be an Oregonian, but you don't count and you are not politically relevant because you are not a large enough group to actually have power in this state. I hate to break it to the state's Republicans, but you just do not have the numbers, which is why the Greater Idaho Movement is its own fucking thing and everything. But LOL, nope, we don't care and everything. And so, you can die mad at me. I don't give a shit at all. How upset you are at me. It doesn't matter to me at all. You know, thanks Donald Trump. Thanks stupid. I feel like Galleon in that scene from Lunar 2 at this point, or not Lunar 2, but Lunar, after you kill the Black Dragon and everything. We gotta moved on to the old version, the one that I prefer. So, anyways, the Black Dragon, we'll go with Luca RPG's video of it. So, we'll wait until
Oh dear.
the
You're making this way.
Dang right, we should gain levels for that.
Very impressive, Alex. You just killed the only remaining means of becoming a Dragon Master. You're making this way too easy. Now the goddess is completely unprotected. She's mine to control. The world is my oyster.
Oh great, did we just break it? Nice job breaking it, hero. Mr. Obvious strikes again. That was Galleon's voice. If he really was the old man from Mark, that'd be great. I'm gonna actually.
So, anyways, I'm laughing in a big way at Donald Trump, because his stupid action here has only benefited me and made senators that hate him and senators that oppose him from the opposing party, far more powerful and everything. And it doesn't really matter who wins elections because, John Cornyn's replacement will sit at the bottom of Senate seniority and have to climb, the same way that everybody else in the Senate did. So, that this is funny. You've just made Oregon more powerful at the expense of Texas, Very impressive, Donald. I gotta hand it to you. I feel like I'm, that scene in the Honey Badgers where, that the Honey Badgers doing all the work and, the birds come in and steal its food, and I feel like I'm stealing Donald Trump's food, and I'm like, thanks, stupid, and everything about this. Good going, Mr. President. You've benefited all the forces that are arrayed against you. So, well played. You know, very impressive what you've done. Anyways, I love watching you knock out the Republican establishment in order to, radicalize the party with, pro-Trump stance, because I know that the American people often, You haven't had a great track record of winning general elections, to say the least. You may be good at knocking off Republicans in primaries, but you're not so good at winning general elections. Your candidates often knock off the Republican only to go on and be rejected by voters and lose. Which is pretty great. You've benefited the Democratic Party in ways that you just do not understand, and I love it. Oregon just became more powerful in the Senate, at the expense of Texas, so we're winning.